Okay, and we are live. Welcome to a new episode of All Things Xbox Podcast. Once again, I have Logan with me. Logan, how you doing?
Doing great, Jamie. How are you?
Good. It's been a busy week, and last week's gaming news was all over the place because there was lots of drama. Thankfully, there hasn't really been much drama this week outside of people's reactions to Call of Duty and what Satya and Adela said. So we'll get into all that stuff. But yeah, good stuff. And yeah, before we get to the main topics, I want to talk about a game I've been playing because it's just been put in Xbox Game Pass. It was actually put in last week, the day of the show, but I didn't get enough time to play it, and that was Hard Space Shipbreaker. It's basically a game where you tear apart spaceships with a plasma cutter. You basically play as Isaac Clarke from, the Dead Space games, just without the necromorphs, trying to kill you every second. And it's arguably one of the best games of the year. Have you played it at all?
Oh, I've actually been focused on Deathloop right now. That's what I've been doing, but it does look interesting.
Yeah, so like I planned on playing Deathloop like right after I finish Hard Space Shipbreaker because it's meant to be a shorter game, but like I don't know why not many people are talking about this. Like, is it fairly niche? Yeah, I mean you do tear apart spaceships. There is a story mode, but honestly, it's fantastic. And the fact it's in Game Pass, more people can play it because that's one of the best things about Game Pass is that if you don't like a genre and you see a game that's kind of interesting, you can play it. And I think it's going to open people's eyes up to just like more genres and stuff. But literally, you get sent to this sort of kind of space dock where they give you spaceships. They start off small and it turns out they get really big, and you have to watch out that you don't hit power lines or breach reactors and stuff. And it's just a really cool concept for a video game where it just seems like everything at the minute seems like they're either open world RPGs or shooters. It just seems like it's either one of those two things. But you have this like very niche first person, zero G game where you tear apart spaceships, and it's just really cool. And I think it got me thinking. Like, we see people post game reviews all the time. Metacritic scores. People go to war with that stuff all the time. And it got me thinking. Like, do we review games of because of what they are, or do we compare them against other things? So, like, when Immortals Phoenix Rising came out in 2020, people were comparing it to Zelda Breath of the Wild. And then they were actually giving it a lower score because the story wasn't as good. Well, my thought is, why can't we judge games for what they're trying to be rather than compare them about other things? Because if that's the case, like, every game we can compare open world wise to like Red Dead Redemption or The Witcher 3, because I don't know, like, I'm a rambling with this because I don't know, like, I think people look at reviews too much and like hype, and then you look at something like Hard Space Shipbreaker, which has solid reviews, and nobody's talking about it because it's kind of niche.
Yeah, I agree. Some of the best games are niche. Like you just discover, like Power Wash Simulator. I know it sounds funny, but it's like I never thought I would enjoy a game like that. But it was on Game Pass, so I tried it out on a whim, and it's become my go-to Zen game. I play it and I have a podcast going in the background or some music. It helps me chill, and it's just like it's not something I ever would have played, but I really like it now. And then like Hardship Space Breakers is like that as well. It's a game that people can try and maybe they get hooked on it, and if they don't, then hey, it was in Game Pass. It's okay. You can experience it. And yeah, about comparing games, it I understand why people compare games, but I think it detracts from each title when you do that because each game is made by different people in different studios with different experiences and different time periods. And it's just I don't know, it's like if you compare every single FPS game. It's like yes, they have guns, but this one does this one does that. I mean, it's like they're all different. Yes, there are some crossover and some similarity. It's like, yes, you are shooting something. Congratulations, that's an FPS. But it, I don't know. I think people get too caught up in that.
Yeah, but it just got me thinking because I was recently watching the trailer to like make a video of Hard Space Shipbreaker, and it had all these accolades. Places giving this game like 5 out of 5. Some Some places give it like a 10. And it's like nobody's talking about it. Like if you search Hard Space Shipbreaker on Twitter, I'm pretty much the only dude talking about it. Like, although that is one of the things with me, I do tend to like post about games nobody's really like heard about. But it's in Game Pass, people. Download it. It's a fairly small download as far as I'm aware, but fun game. And if you like playing like super chill games while listening to a podcast, it's basically one of those types of games. There is dialogue going on, but if you pick like the free play mode, you can just have at it. And here's a tip for people playing Hard Space Shipbreaker, right? And I discovered this by accident. You get tutorial missions where you get sent into an area with a ship and you have to do one specific thing. And as soon as you do that one specific thing, you go back to your main shift time. So shifts in Hard Space Shipbreaker are 15 minutes. You have 15 minutes to break apart the ship as fast as possible, and you can do as many shifts as you like. But you make more money, basically, the less amount of shifts you make. Well, it turns out if there's a tutorial, completely scrap the ship beforehand and then do what's required in the tutorial. That way you get all the money in one shift. Turns out they haven't patched anything like that out yet, and it turns out it's been there for about a year in the PC version. It looks like it's not going away, so just a tip to people out there. But yeah, Hard Space Shipbreaker. It's in Game Pass. Download it. It's excellent. I was thinking last night, like, if it gets any better, it could probably take over Elden Ring for me for Game of the Year, which is kind of crazy to think about. Anyway, we'll move on. Normally I'll leave the rants till we get later into the show, but I want to talk about this now because if you follow me on Twitter, people have seen this. Quickly I'll say this. If you're enjoying the show, please like, share, subscribe. It really helps the channel out. So, if you've been an Xbox fellow on Twitter, you know that if you post screenshots, GIFs, news, snippets or whatever, anything related to Xbox, you always get these replies by trolls. And it's been going on for years now, and it's not surprising at this point. But I have noticed that if I post gameplay onto Twitter, which I do on a daily basis, literally without fail, I post my own gameplay every day. Well, I've noticed that if you say that a game's from Xbox, people just get angry. And now people are replying to me saying that, Jamie, if you didn't put the word from Xbox Series X in the end of your posts, no one would have a problem with you. And it's like, why do people have a problem with me saying what console I'm playing on? Because I have posted, iOS gameplay before and posted, from iPhone XS. Nobody had an issue with that. Nobody really had an issue with the One X footage or Xbox One footage, but it's ever since the Series X came out, people get riled up. And it's happening on the daily now. Like, I get it. I post, like, dumb comments. I get dumb comments all the time by fanboys, but, like, people legitimately get upset on Twitter just by me posting gameplay with the word Xbox Series X in the title. Like, it's crazy how upset people get over something so simple. Like you've obviously seen this, right, Logan?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to blame him being upset when the leader of the ecosystem's crying every day about something. So, I mean, it seems to be the trend lately, and it's just obnoxious. I don't know why people are just getting upset at every little thing and trying to make big deals out of nothing. And you post what console it was on you played on. I mean, if someone posts that they play a game on PlayStation that's a third-party game, I'm not going to go, why'd you put it on PlayStation? Why didn't you just say you're playing the game, huh? You trying to make a point, huh? It's weird.
Yeah, like, I post, like, dumb comments I get all the time, but I don't post the craziest ones, which is the funniest thing, because, like, some of them are so unhinged just by simply saying I'm playing from an Xbox. I once recommended, what do you call it? Call of Duty Infinite Warfare's campaign. Whenever it gets put in Game Pass, I recommended people that one day. Fairly, harmful thing to, say. And someone got so riled up that they're like, you knew what you said, Jamie. You know what you did. And I'm just sitting there thinking, what are you talking about? Like, people just get angry over gaming so much, and it's like, I just don't get it. And it makes me wonder, like, if we had the ability to post screenshots and clips back during the Xbox 360 generation, it would have been all out war, because we all know what the state of online was like back then, because the PlayStation 3 was in a weird place. The Wii was, everyone had a Wii, but nobody used it. And then you had the Xbox 360, which basically had the mindshare for the most of the generation. And then you have now where social media is very prominent. We can post clips and screenshots from our consoles whenever we want. I think you can even do that on the Steam Deck as well. And people just get angry over like seeing the word Xbox. And like, if I recommend people a game and say it's in Game Pass, I get told that I'm, kind of advertising Game Pass, and I'm an ad. And here's the thing, right? I will say that good services are good. I think Disney Plus is an amazing service. I can't see myself ever unsubscribing. It's fantastic. I think it was like £76 for the year, and I look at Game Pass and think that is a great deal for what you get. Other than like the games that's in the library, you have the discounts and all that stuff, and people just get angry. Like, and it makes you wonder if the shoe was on the other foot. If PlayStation had a service like this, they would be boasting about it all the time. It's really annoying that we're at this point now where people get angry just by you posting the word Xbox in a message. Like, that's how unhinged people are getting now. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Anyway, we'll move on. I just can't stand crazy people. Okay, we had this topic last week, and I kind of like skimmed over it because of the timing. But Star Ocean, the Define Force demo, new JRPG by Square Enix, is actually coming to Xbox, and there's a new demo as well on Xbox. Did you play it at all, Logan?
I haven't, but it's on my list. Anytime a JRPG comes to Xbox, it gets my attention, and especially a Square one. It's a rare W for Square, so looking forward to it.
Yeah, so I did actually get to play it, and it's not bad. I will say this, visually, it's not good. Like, it feels like it's I know people's go-to insult for a game with bad graphics is saying it's a generation old or something, but it feels like the game was made probably 10 years ago, like, just by its visuals. However, I did have fun with the demo. If you like something like, I got Xenoblade Chronicles vibes from it, and very simple combat. Basically, press X for soft hit, press Y for heavy hit, that kind of stuff. Very much your bog standard, JRPG action style combat. But I had fun with it. I recommend people download the demo. And I get with this type of game, people are a bit hesitant because, like, if you buy this game, are you funding another Final Fantasy game that isn't coming to Xbox? And I say that daily. Like, there's a port or remake of a PlayStation 1 JRPG called The Divine Chronicles or something. I can't remember its name. But it's like £40. And it's like everyone's saying how it's like overpriced. And now I've seen people today say that they want to get it, but they don't want to get it because, they're funding games that they're not going to get in the future. And I think the whole Final Fantasy VII thing has completely screwed up Square's chances of getting any form of sales when it comes to their other titles. Because, let's face it, we don't know what's happening with their titles at all. And I say something like, the Divine Force, like Star Ocean, and people aren't wanting to talk about it because it's Square Enix. If anyone else made that game, they'd probably be all over it. You've probably seen that as well, right?
Yeah, Square Enix. There's a lot of bad blood between Xbox fans and Square, and I mean, it's definitely understandable. So I get why people would be hesitant to support one of their games when it finally comes to the platform. But at the same time, if you like a game, you like a game. So it's up to everyone.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Like, I know this wasn't on the topics list, but when we're talking about Square Enix anyway, the Final Fantasy Crisis Core remake is coming to Xbox in December, and it looks good. I really want it, and I've been thinking, like, I don't want to support Square because I'm not going to get any of their future titles, or we don't know the situation. We just don't. But I think my enjoyment of something outweighs the whole like morality factor of maybe not getting something in the future. Because I've always wanted to play Crisis Core when it was on the PSP back in the day. I just never got it. And I look at this thinking, well, it's the opportunity for me to play something I want to. And I think people should, think that way. Obviously, I think people should spend the money how they want. But when it comes to things like, Final Fantasy Crisis Core and the Define Force, again, it played fun. I recommend people download it. Very small download. Um, I get it. We want to kind of screw over Square and like not give them any money, but at the same time, it's like you're missing out on your own enjoyment. So that's just my advice. Just spend your money on what you want and not think too much about the repercussions of what Square's going to feel down the line, because Square's going to be fine in the end. They're going to complain about the sales at the end of the day. They're probably going to get bought up by Sony or Tencent. Who knows? Tencent's all over the place at the minute. But Square Enix and stuff. Yeah, spend your money how you want. But again, download the demo, Star Wars and the Define Force. I think it's on Xbox One and PlayStation 4 consoles as well. I'm pretty sure it's cross-gen. But yeah, fun demo. We had this topic last week in the title, and I had to change it because I forgot about it. New Marvel games. Now, we had a new Skydance Marvel game announced at the Disney Showcase the other week, and that's going to be Captain America, Black Panther, and all that stuff. Well, it turns out Iron Man by EA is real. It's been rumored for the past month and a half, and it's a single-player action-adventure game by a new studio. And yeah, basically they said like in the press release that it's going to be single-player, no emphasis on microtransactions, all that stuff. And it's like EA of all companies, they're learning and they're making really good moves, which kind of points towards there being another Black Panther game as well, because EA have said they're making multiple Marvel games. And after a generation filled of, how many Marvel games did we get that were multi-platform? 2. We got Guardians of the Galaxy and Marvel's Avengers. And it looks like, we're going to start getting more games. Even though we didn't get any footage, we got one screenshot of kind of a character outline. That's pretty much it. What are your thoughts on this, Logan? Because we really want more superhero games.
I'm all for more superhero games. Me, it's like Marvel and DC, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, like franchises like that transcend a certain ecosystem, in my opinion. They're kind of like for everybody. So I'm really glad we're getting more that anybody can play. And it's a shame the deal with Spider-Man, I get it, but because, Sony rights and all that. But yeah, I like the idea of more people being able to enjoy these shared pop culture phenomenon that we've all grown up with.
Yeah, the whole Marvel thing's all over the place at the minute. Like literally about half an hour before this show went live, Deadpool 3 was announced with Hugh Jackman, and everyone's losing their mind. And with superheroes being like as big as they are at the minute, people want more games, and it just seems like we don't get a lot. Well, with EA learning, I think their games should be ones people should look forward to. Like, look at Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Like, people were doubting that game from the second it was announced because people were worried about microtransactions. They were worried about multiplayer, and EA have just made these like decisions over the past few years. They came so far. They said that massive, I should say Dragon Age Origins, I should say Dragon Age 4. By the way, when you have like a million different titles and studios and projects in your head, it just gets all mushed up sometimes. But the new Dragon Age has no multiplayer, there's no online service or any of that stuff. Mass Effect 4, we're going to call it that, is moved to Unreal Engine, and it's single player. And, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order was amazing, single player, no extra content, no microtransactions. And it just looks like this Iron Man game is going to be another good step in them getting more good faith. Because let's face it, EA has been the punching bag for the past decade. Deservingly so in most ways. They ruined Star Wars Battlefront 2. Battlefield games from, I'd say, Battlefield 1 have been a mess in a lot of cases. And yeah, they're learning, which is good. We're going to get better games because of it. So, next year, we're probably going to see the Iron Man game. Then we have Jedi Fallen Survivor, which is cool. And yeah, EA games, they're getting some, goodwill at the minute. Square Enix is taking the crap position. Yeah, I'm just going to kick Square Enix down at any opportunity.
Why not at this point?
Why not, man? I think as an Xbox fan, we've seen enough from Square Enix, we want to know what's coming to the platform, and then you have EA just, oh yeah, making all these good decisions all of a sudden. Because remember, 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, EA was in the worst place possible. Like nobody liked them, and they were literally the
Oh, they
punch.
were scum.
Yeah,
People hated.
yeah. Like remember Star Wars Battlefront 2, like amazing graphics, great gameplay. The Battle for Geonosis level in that game looks stunning. It looks literally like the film. But like the way they handled the microtransactions in that game was terrible. Battlefield 2042 is terrible. like, like for me to not buy a Battlefield game, it genuinely has to be really bad. Like, and I was like, no, I'm not picking that up. But they're learning, and it's good to see a publisher as big as EA making good choices. Multi-platform superhero games, and I'll be all for it. And here's the thing: we used to get Iron Man games back on the Xbox 360, back when Iron Man 1 and 2 came out. They weren't good. That was back when you got these cash grab movie tie-in titles. Even though I kind of do miss that era a bit. We did get the occasional good title, like the Wolverine game, which was good, the Captain America game, which was good. But yeah, good moves from me, yeah, which is good. This wasn't originally in the list, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. So Ubisoft, they're kind of having this editorial change-up where sort of games get announced internally, and then they get approved, and then they get developed. And over the past, I'd say, 7 years, we've seen most of Ubisoft's games kind of go into the same direction. Action RPGs with a lot of the same elements. So you have Far Cry. Far Cry, which has RPG elements now, but it also has Assassin's Creed elements. You also have Assassin's Creed now, which feels a little bit like Ghost Recon, and Ghost Recon has Assassin's Creed elements, and they all kind of intertwined. And they kind of cater to the largest group of people. These people that like action RPGs. Like if you look at my shelf, I'll post a picture at some point. There's a lot of Ubisoft titles. And I feel like a lot of people are in the same boat because they make titles that a lot of people like. It turns out that they've had some, moving around internally with staff and stuff, and it looks like we might start getting titles aimed at a broader range of people. So at the minute, Ghost Recon is aimed at everyone. Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, Watch Dogs, aimed at every gamer under the sun. But if you like someone like me and you want a linear Ghost Recon game like, I don't know, Future Warfare.
Well, yes,
yeah,
bring it back.
Like it looks like we're gonna start seeing games like that again. So we're gonna see like the big open world RPGs, but it looks like Ubisoft want to cater to like the other groups that are just waiting for more games. Like look at Splinter Cell. Splinter Cell, I do not believe would work as an open world title at all because it would just be Ghost Recon at that point. Well, it looks like, we're going to see Assassin's Creed have maybe, the more linear titles. I should say the more traditional games. But we'll still have the open world RPGs. So, basically, Ubisoft want to have multiple games in each franchise where they can make $1 billion a year, basically, from each franchise. So, have Ghost Recon, Assassin's Creed, Far Cry launch sort of semi-annually, where we get a title and each one would be different from the last. So Assassin's Creed Valhalla is like Odyssey, but Mirage is going to be out next, and that's not like Valhalla at all. So I think for people that like a bit of variety when it comes to Ubisoft games, and if you were a fan of Ubisoft during the, I want to say 2009 to 2014 era, where they were coming out with Splinter Cell Conviction, Blacklist, Far Cry 3, Splinter Cell, I should say Ghost Recon Future and Advanced Warfighter. I get all their names mixed up, but basically all the games that launched them, Assassin's Creed 4, Black Flag. Well, it looks like we're going to be going back to those days, and there's someone that loves Ubisoft's games, and I thought they were the best publisher in that 3 to 4 year period. It looks like we're going back to those days. What's your thought on that, Logan? Because I know you like Ubisoft games as well.
Yeah, I'm stoked about that. I miss the old school OG and 360 era Ubisoft where you had Ghost Recon, Modern Warfare, Advanced Warfighter, and then Warfare 2, and then Future Soldier, and then you had Rainbow Six Vegas, and the old school single player story mode and stuff. And then like the original Assassin's Creed 1 and 2 and stuff like that. So them harkening back to that era is a godsend to me.
Yeah, I mean, they were coming out with their best titles then, and probably the best reviewed games from then. And even back then, they were coming out with like smaller titles like Valiant Hearts, which people likes. And hopefully we'll get a new Rayman Legends. But if you're a fan of Ubisoft in the 2009 to 2014 days, it looks like they might be going back to that, which really makes me happy. Now today we also got the full release of Grounded. Now I did not really play Grounded outside of the tutorial. I decided to wait for the full release with the campaign. But the game was huge when it launched. Like a lot of the big Twitch streamers were playing it. People from like the Sidemen were playing it. It was kind of big at launch, and then it kind of died down a bit because the amount of content. It wasn't early access sort of thing. But the whole thing's out now. Single player story campaign, which you can play co-op and all that stuff. Logan, have you played Grounded at all?
Yeah, I put a lot of hours into it, and I really really enjoyed it. Like made a huge like castle fortress cabin thing by the pond, and like did a whole bunch of exploring and finding secrets and stuff before they added the story. So I'm really excited to. I took a few months off to wait till they just finished up the content and then put it out there. So I'm excited to dive back in now that the whole story's there and everything's accessible. It, it's that perfect like '90s movie, like old school Disney film, like brought to life in a game, and I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, I mean, like I've held off for it, and a lot of people have held off as well because if you're a story-centric person like me, like I'm not really into survival games that much. The occasional one's okay, but I'm all there for the story, and the whole like Honey I Shrunk the Kids thing does intrigue us. But it's out now, people play it, it's in Game Pass, all that stuff. Um, you know, Actually, since you've been playing it, we'll talk about that next. Deathloop. Now, I only played the tutorial. Again, I'm saving the game to basically play after I've finished, Hard Space Shipbreaker. What did you think of Deathloop so far?
Oh, I love it. It's a true arcane DNA. It feels bits of Dishonored and bits of Prey, kind of like taking the lessons they've learned from both. And then there's a little bit of a kind of Returnal thrown in. If you've played the title on PS5, from House Marquee, it because there's a time loop thing and there's some roguelite elements, but you keep going back and you kill these targets and then you learn more information about them and how to deal with them or how to potentially off them in a way to where you can take care of another target as well. So you keep going back and finding out like a detective more clues you need to where you can get the whole picture together and then go, okay, I gotta off all eight of these folks in one day. And then boom, the loop is closed. Game over. I'm free. Or if you play Juliana, you're like, okay, I gotta stop Colt no matter what. So I'm almost done playing with Colt. Like I've gathered most of the clues. There's just one or two more I need, and then I can do the final run to take them all out in one day. But I'm loving it.
That's good to hear. I mean, from what I have played, it's definitely an Arcane title. Like Arcane's gameplay sticks out. Like it's just very good, But what I was surprised by when I started the game up, the visuals. Like there's like various different like visual modes. There's also like there's performance quality. There's quality ray tracing. There's full on uh performance mode. Basically, there's like five modes, but I played it on the performance quality, so I had gorgeous 4K visuals. It's 60 frames, great in my opinion. Can't go wrong with that. But yeah, stunning game. Like I know they've been able to get some extra horsepower out for this game compared to the PlayStation 5 version, but like from what I've seen and from what I've played, like butter smooth game from Arcane. I really do hope we could see maybe a next gen upgrade for Prey. That's all I could think while I was playing it.
100%.
But yeah, I mean, like, people have been waiting a long time for this. It's been a year. But it just goes to show because that was pretty much a shadow drop, you know. but Microsoft couldn't talk about it for a year. And I remember popping on Twitter even just a few weeks ago, people were panicking, thinking it's not coming over. It's like Microsoft literally couldn't talk about it at all. But it's out now. People can play it, all that stuff. It will be interesting to see what Arcane does forward, because we will, or I should say, we will see Redfall next, which I'm guessing is going to be early 2023. But it makes you wonder, like, what are we going to see from them after that? Are we going to see Prey 2, Deathloop 2? Deathloop 2 will be an Xbox only title, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do next. Arcane always make good games. Like, Dishonored has to be one of the most interesting stealth action games I've ever played. Very grim story, but good gameplay. And then you have like Prey, which is just set on the space station, and it's not even that big when you actually like look at the entire game, but impressive nonetheless. They make really good immersive sims, and it's good to see that they continue to like sort of push the envelope when it comes to storytelling, because when it comes to let's face it, Deathloop is kind of like a roguelite in a way, where you have to like memorize routes and do all that stuff. But yeah, good to see Arcane make some awesome stuff. This kind of popped up in the news yesterday, and I want to talk about it because I know you feel the same way. Star Wars games. A lot of people like Star Wars games. We've had a lot of Star Wars games in the past. Recently, though, not as much. Well, it turns out that Disney put out a statement saying they want a new Star Wars game every 6 months. And I saw multiple different reactions to this. I saw some people be extremely hyped, and I saw some people worried and concerned because the lack of quality would be there. And it's like, for about 8 years, like, EA had exclusive rights to Star Wars, so we were barely getting anything from them. Like, during the last generation, before the launch of Xbox Series XS and PlayStation 5, these are the Star Wars games we got: Battlefront 1 and 2, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. That is it, right? I believe we got Squadrons after the release of next-gen consoles. Either way, we got 3 or 4. I'm not counting Lego games because, Lego is basically its own thing at this point. But yeah, we didn't get many games. And I don't think people have to be worried, because we're going to have multiple different studios by different publishers making these titles. Like, Ubisoft's making multiple Star Wars games. Respawn are making 3 Star Wars games, which is kind of mind-blowing. They're making Jedi Fallen Survivor. They're making a first-person shooter in the Star Wars universe, and also a strategy game, which I didn't expect. Amy Hennig with Skydance is making a Star Wars game, and there's basically, I think, 8 Star Wars games announced, and 7 of them are coming to console. But basically, the reason why I think people shouldn't be concerned is that the glory days of Star Wars games during the Xbox, GameCube, and PlayStation 2 generation, we were literally getting a new Star Wars game every few months. And the majority of the time, they were good. I'll read some of them off, because literally we got a ridiculous amount. So, we'll start from 2001. Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2, which was an amazing game. Honestly, from the GameCube back then, it still looks good. We got Star Wars Jedi Knight Jedi Academy. We got Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. Lego Star Wars 2. We got Star Wars Jedi Starfighter, Battlefront, Super Star Wars Starfighter, Star Wars Rogue Squadron. There was like a re-release on PC and all that stuff. Star Wars Empire at War. Wow, there's a lot. Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds, Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast, Battlefront 2. Literally, the list goes on. We got Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2. Basically, the glory days of Star Wars games, we got about 5 a year. Something like that. And nobody really complained. Yes, we did get Star Wars Obi-Wan on the original Xbox. People hate that game. I don't care. I enjoyed it. Logan,
Same.
Yeah, what's your thought on this? Because, obviously, the glory days back then, nobody really complained about quality because they were all good. And now, we're going to get multiple games a year, and some people are freaking out.
Honestly, I think it harkens back to a conversation we just had not that long ago about EA. If EA hadn't just epically just fell on their face off a cliff the Star Wars IP to start the generation, I don't think people would be upset or concerned about having this many Star Wars games in a short amount of time. Like you said, us growing up with, OG Xbox, PS2, GameCube, and then 360 era, we got just an absolute just gold mine of Star Wars games every year. And like 9 out of 10 or so would be amazing. So, I mean, pour one out for Star Wars 1313. I'm still sad about that one not happening.
Yep.
But for the most part, like if a Star Wars game came out, it was pretty good. And so I think honestly the fear is because of EA canceling so many Star Wars projects they had. Amy Hennig's game Project Orca, which she's now basically redoing with Skydance. It's basically the same idea that she's getting another chance at, thank goodness. And like all these other games, and then them absolutely having a cluster, of a launch for Battlefront 2, but then they redeemed themselves eventually with that. Then Fallen Order was incredible. And so they learned their lesson eventually. But it's the fact that they had the license exclusively for so long and they did such a terrible job at the beginning of it, and I think that's why people are concerned. To me, I hear two Star Wars titles a year, and they're back to allowing different devs to have the Star Wars IP, not just one company. I mean, it's a godsend to me, and I can't wait personally. Because this is how we get a Republic Commando 2, or a Imperial Commando, or whatever they want to do now. Or, more Knights of the Old Republic era type games. Stuff like that. To me, this is great news.
Yeah, I mean, like, if it was just EA still, like, it would be pretty grim. Like, we are going to get the 3 games from Respawn, but, like, the open world Ubisoft game, I can't even imagine what that's going to be like. Like, really, like, the setting, what they're going to do with it, what timeline. And the thing is, as far as I'm aware, unless these games are ports or remakes, they are all canon. So they pretty much have to run everything through Lucasfilm anyway, so we're going to get quality. I've never really played a bad Star Wars game with a bad story, ever. Even back on the OG Xbox, like, those games were good. Like, really good. Like, Knights of the Old Republic, people still talk about it to this day because it's twists and just how good its story is.
My favorite game ever.
Like, it's incredible. Like I would love just a film that's just literally a direct adaptation of that game. I think a lot of people would, but yeah, I don't think people have to worry. And plus, like, the fact that we're going to see a first-person shooter in the Star Wars universe from Respawn, like, I just, who knows, that could be maybe, like, a Bad Batch type game because of how popular that is. That would be bloody good. But yeah, people shouldn't worry. More Star Wars games, it's all good. And if it was just EA, I'd be concerned because they could get away with what they want. If it wasn't for Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, the games we would be getting from them would still be filled with microtransactions and stuff. So yeah, I wouldn't worry, people. And who knows? Like, I've heard of rumbling in the past that a developer somewhere is making a game loosely based on The Mandalorian. I'm not going off that Microsoft rumor. I don't believe that one bit. But apparently there's a developer working on a Mandalorian style game. I heard this like
Seems like a no-brainer to me.
yeah. I mean, think about it. Like, if all characters in Star Wars and all settings, like, wouldn't the Mandalorian make the most sense? Because you'd earn money or Beskar steel to increase your armor and then get better weapons. Like, it's kind of perfectly built for an RPG. So, like, I know I heard this about a year ago, and I hope it to be true, because a Mandalorian style game where you earn Beskar to increase your armor, like, that sounds so good. And it seems like so simple, like, so easy, like, if I can come up with that, why can't developers? Like, we need more Star Wars nerds and game developers. But yeah, pretty much the sky's the limit with Star Wars games. Like, hell, recently I was playing Star Wars Episode 1 Pod Racer on my Xbox. Like, the N64 game. And by the way,
Classic.
yeah, it's a classic game. And by the way, it's a port that's widescreen and it has no graphical upgrades at all. It's definitely an N64 game. Like, it is 60 frames, thankfully, but it looks terrible. But I still got that nostalgia from it as well. Anyway, we'll move on. Yeah, and if people enjoying the show, like, share, and subscribe, all that stuff, super chats, it's all welcome. Helps the show go and all that stuff. Okay, so Logan, before the show went live, you told me that you wanted to talk about whining versus constructive criticism. Now, this is a topic a lot that's brought up, and I can maybe guess where you're going with this, but in case people listen don't know, you have the floor.
Okay, this will. Thank you. This will be brief. It's just you notice how when a company does something and it's not received well, some go like at their throats big time over it, and then others are more constructive. And generally, it seems like more constructive criticism leads to better results than just screaming at them or just constantly being angry. If especially if you have an account or you build a brand to where you're just associated with constantly complaining or constantly whining about something, you get tuned out. If you're an account who hasn't built your brand on that and you're more nuanced about the battles you pick and when to be vocal, you get your voice is heard more and more attention is paid to what you have to say. And just polite. Like even if something like sucks, there are ways to address it and talk about it without just being just ruthless to them. Especially with devs, there's a lot of dev harassment, and yes, some studios have been doing a very bad job. It happens, but the way you handle it can greatly impact how things get addressed going forward. And it's just something I saw like I know the Halo community gets brought up all the time. I'm part of Halo community too. I love Halo, but it's like they announce a map, for that's going to be made in Halo Forge. It's a remake of Pit from Halo 3, part of the anniversary celebration. And some people were really happy and some were very not, and then some were ambivalent, but the very not was extremely toxic and gross. And it's just like, at some point, if you want them to change something, try and go about it a little bit more positive way, and maybe you'll get the results you actually want.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw the map announcements, like, I thought people would have been happy. Like, oh, yeah, one of, like, Halo 3's biggest maps brought to, like, the modern game. Wouldn't that be, like, popular? Turns out people weren't happy. And, I think this is a thing with a lot of gaming fandoms, that there's a group that's always angry. It isn't just Halo. Like, you can take Gears of War, there's people that complain about that, Battlefield. Actually, we're not going to put Battlefield in there because they messed up so much anyway. But, like, you mentioned the constructive criticism thing. Like, it's been constructive, people saying that, the maps and the classes, or to say the specialists in Battlefield 2042 don't work. The maps were too big and too open. That was constructive, and some of the developers even listen to the feedback. They're going to remove the specialists from Battlefield 2042, which is a big win. But, like, there's people, like, sending all these threats and stuff, and this has been going on for decades, or at least over a decade from what I'm aware. Like, remember when Mass Effect 3 came out, and people went absolutely nuts over the ending? Well, some people were saying, like, what was wrong with the ending and how they could correct it. And then there was people, like, sending threats to the studio. And it's horrible. Like, it happens on a daily basis. Like, I don't really follow the Destiny game that much, Destiny 2. But I've seen developers over there get a lot of harassment just by simply existing. Someone will post something like, post a picture of the coffee or something, and they'll just get threats and, like, oh, you're not doing this to the game and stuff. And it's like, I think people put too much weight and, like, too much emotion into everything gaming related. Like, we're meant to enjoy these things. Like, we sit on our behinds and play these games with our thumbs where we move, characters on a screen, like, and people get emotional over it and angry. And it's like, I don't get it, to be honest. Like, the only time I rage in a game is if someone, like, throws me off a ledge in Fall Guys. Like, other than that, I'm fairly chill. But yeah, I saw what you meant with the whole Halo thing. again, but I think, Halo just has people supercharged all the time. They announced a Halo cookbook. People lost their minds.
You had one job,
Yeah,
not this.
yeah, and the thing is, these companies that make these cookbooks and that, they just sign a license agreement with the IP holder, and they just come up with recipes. It's happened for other games before. I think Assassin's Creed has had a cookbook. And again, what does a cookbook have to do with Assassins? Nothing. And I remember when Among Us, they announced that Xbox was getting some Master Chief outfits, like a Master Chief outfit. And people are losing their mind saying, "Oh, this is getting content, but Halo isn't." But on the PlayStation side, they put out a Ratchet and Clank outfit on PlayStation, but nobody wasn't losing their mind. I think the Halo community needs to calm down a bit. And the thing is, Halo, people have been emotional for years, and I don't think it has anything really to do with just like Halo Infinite. I remember Halo 2, people complaining online in forums all the time about Halo, about how you can have dual weapons and stuff. And then Halo 3, people complaining about that. But I notice it's always like this cycle where people hate the new Halo game and then they begin to love the last one. So I've seen a lot of people give Halo 5 love in my feed in the past month.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
Yeah. And I mean, every aspect of it, the cutscenes, the gameplay, the multiplayer, the campaign, people are giving it a lot of love. People I saw hate the game before. So whenever Halo Infinite 2 is announced, or whatever they want to call it, Infinite's going to get this resurgence of love, where the multiplayer is going to be packed. People are going to be like, this is the best multiplayer we've ever had, and it's just this endless cycle. I remember people complaining online about Halo 2. Like I remember that in forums, and it's a thing with Halo all the time. Although, funny thing is, Halo Wars, I don't remember seeing a single angry person talk about Halo Wars. RTS fans seem fairly chill.
Yeah, the only complaint I hear is that we don't have a third one. That's it.
Yeah, I would love a third one, but I have never seen an angry post about Halo Wars. So. Yeah, just gaming fandoms and sci-fi fandoms. I remember Stargate fans back in the day lose it when Stargate Atlantis was announced. And then those same people got angry when it got cancelled. It's like this never-ending cycle of just people losing their minds. I love Halo, and I've made it perfectly clear online that I don't play multiplayer anymore. I don't know what it is. It turned 2015 or something. I loved Halo 5's multiplayer, but I just don't enjoy competitive multiplayer anymore. And, well, we'll be talking about that in a bit with Call of Duty, because things might be changing. But, the Halo multiplayer, it's fun from what I played, but I just can't enjoy multiplayer. The campaign, by the way, for Halo Infinite, I loved. I think that might be my favourite Halo campaign.
I really enjoyed it.
It was a fun game, the mission structure, the open world. I thought the open world wasn't too big. I liked the structure of how you went from one segment to the next of each ring. But yeah, I liked it. Just Halo fans, please chill. And here's the thing, right? It's very well known that I have 2,000 people blocked on Twitter. I have maybe 400 people muted. A lot of those mutes are Halo fans. The extreme crazy ones, Master Chief profile picture where they talk nothing about was it SBMM or whatever it is, skill-based matchmaking, which I never really knew what the hell that was about up until recently. I don't care. But yeah, Halo fans, chill, or you'll get blocked and muted. We'll move on. Okay, we'll talk about the LG thing. So about a month ago, Phil Spencer was in Japan talking to, Kojima about the upcoming game and projects and stuff when he was at the TGS show. Actually, it was only about 2 weeks ago. Well, there's a screenshot taken of Kojima standing next to Phil Spencer, and he was on this sort of white handheld console with black shoulder buttons. And it turns out about a week ago, LG announced their new streaming handheld, and it's 100% streaming, and it's $350. And you can play Game Pass on it via, xCloud. Now, as someone that uses xCloud on the daily, the technology has came a long way, and I can see a dedicated handheld for streaming being really good if you at home or have like a really good connection, I think the price is a bit outrageous. But if you order it on the Microsoft Store, you get $50 off, which isn't that bad. But it looks cool, and if you want a dedicated streaming handheld, it's out there. Personally, I think that if you want to stream Xbox games handheld, you just get yourself a phone clip for your a mobile phone and your controller. You can get the thing that looks like Wii sticks. I forgot what it's called. Yeah, the backbone, Razer backbone. Like I think there's multiple different options out there. You saw this, right, Logan?
Yeah, it looks like a good device. I feel that the price is like very steep for what it is. Personally, I mean, maybe there are some out there who feel it's a good deal for them, and if it is, great. I'm happy for you. But to me, especially since I have a larger, phone anyway, and I have a backbone, to me the price of having my, premium smartphone that's pretty good size and not much smaller than this device, and then having my backbone I can put on it for like $100 to get the backbone, it feels like a better deal to me personally. But if you don't want to have to use your phone and you want just a dedicated device for it, it could be a good deal. It's something I'd probably wait on until it goes on like a Black Friday deal, personally. But I like where they're going and the fact that they're trying this out and testing the waters for a handheld device.
Yeah, I mean, like a few months ago, I was thinking like, how much would it cost to put out a handheld device that's streaming only? And bear in mind, I'm no technical engineer or something, but like I thought like 150 max, because yes, it does need like a processor and all that stuff to connect to the internet, but I don't know what's in there that costs $350. like if you have a lot of spare money, you just either want to throw away or burn, get it, game on. It's gonna be awesome. But yeah, like you were saying, like wait for a sale. Don't buy that thing full price. And if LG want to send me want a review, I'll take it. But I'm just saying, I think $350 is it's a bit steep, And like I'm want to upgrade my phone soon. I've currently got an iPhone XS. I want to get a 14 possibly. I don't really care about the camera. I use Twitter and Safari. That's pretty much it. But like if I could get a backbone, like on top of my contract, and spend nowhere near that much money, so it's like, and the thing is, I think the phone screen's about the same size, so I might as well just not get like the LG thing. But
Exactly.
yeah, and the thing is, if you get like the iPhone Pro Max or Max, basically the big iPhone, or like the big Samsung phone they do now, like you're set. You don't need this thing. Like phone screens now can be huge, and if you have an iPad, well, you even better. But yeah, I recommend people don't spend $350 on this thing. Don't get me wrong, it looks like a nice piece of tech. It looks comfortable. I like the fact that the sticks, the area underneath the sticks, I think they light up, which is cool in my opinion. But that price. But it does make you wonder, is Microsoft also looking at maybe coming out with a cloud only console? Because it's not like Sony, where they brought out the PSP and the PlayStation Vita and they had to make their own games for that piece of hardware. On xCloud, it's just a console game running from the cloud. I think it'd be cool if Microsoft maybe tried something, possibly. Maybe not have it at $350. I still can't believe that price. Like, wow, like what were they thinking? And the thing is, I
It's
own
pretty steep.
yeah, like I own LG stuff. My keyboard, my mouse at LG. They're very well made products, but I just don't see $350 in that little device. Like maybe it's like a cloud thing that you're just gonna like take pictures of it and like post it on Twitter for likes, pay for likes. Okay, I guess, but I don't know. It just seems weird. And plus, for $50 more, you can get a Steam Deck. So why not get a Steam Deck? You know, am I nuts?
Yeah,
Or
Steam Decks are pretty good.
yeah, and like from what I've seen, everybody loves the Steam Deck. It's hard to get a bloody Steam Deck in the UK, and if you live in the UK, like they going for second hand in CEX for like £900. That's like, $1,200. Like, it's ridiculous, I can't wait till the market goes back to normal, by the way, because seeing PlayStations, Xboxes, graphics cards are still ridiculously priced. Nvidia, they announced the 40 series recently. I know we don't talk about PC stuff, but people are angry about those cards because they just jipped up the price. Like, like $200 or something of the highest card. Like, gaming prices at the minute, it's just all over the place. Sony raised the price of their PlayStation. Like, anyway, we're going to move on because I could rant for an hour about this stuff. Anthony Chipmunk in chat said that TGS Xbox this year was fire. It was. Like, I cannot. Yeah, I can't give enough credit to that show. Like, normally we watch TGS Xbox's show or stream or whatever they have, and we know what we're getting. We may get the occasional port or someone saying hi to the Xbox fans, but we never really expect anything, right? And that was a damn good TGS. Like, people weren't expecting Nino Kuni to come to Xbox at all. Nobody expected that. And that's meant to be a really good game from what I've heard. I nearly got that for PS3 back in the day. Thankfully, I didn't. 4K 60 now, which is all good. But yeah, hopefully next year's is just as good or even better. Anyway, we'll move on. So I want to talk about Call of Duty, and which is arguably one of the longest topics we're going to have tonight. Logan, did you play the beta at all?
No, but I'm canceling my pre-order right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just kidding.
So, like, I had a week without internet a few weeks ago, and like, as a Sky member, I get VIP access to things like codes for things and stuff. Anyway, I signed up to all that stuff. They said, we can get you a week early Call of Duty beta access code. And I thought, well, that's great. No internet for a week. This is kind of making up for that. It turns out I never got my email and I had to wait for the open beta. So, if anyone from Sky's listening, thanks for nothing. But yeah, the beta. Now, I don't play multiplayer anymore. I've kind of just been out of it. I'm a single-player guy. I like co-op. But when it comes to competitive multiplayer, I just don't enjoy it anymore. And I've bought previous Call of Duties, and I've not enjoyed the multiplayer. And I played this multiplayer, and it blew my mind. Like, I was playing this, I'm not even kidding, the other day, at 4 a.m. I was no life in this beta. And it's amazing. And it kind of brought me back to why I originally liked Call of Duty. Like, I've not enjoyed Call of Duty multiplayer since Call of Duty Black Ops, the first one. Like, I didn't like Modern Warfare 3, and Black Ops 2 I basically got because my friends got it. Outside of that, I've not enjoyed Call of Duty since. And this beta is amazing. The gameplay is smooth as butter. The visuals are top notch. This game has settings that most games don't have. You have your film grain you can turn off. You can turn your motion blur off. There's also extra sharpening tools and stuff. It's a great game. I think it is full 4K 60. Beautiful game. The sound design, it has to be the best in Call of Duty in years. And I've always criticized Call of Duty for its sound design. I've always thought it was poor compared to Battlefield. This made Battlefield look bad. And what can I say? Like, out of the maps there's one map. If anyone listening's played it, please let me know if you agree or not. There's a map in the beta called Museum, which is an absolute trash fire map. It's one of the worst maps I've ever played in Call of Duty. Outside of that, the rest of the maps are fantastic. There's modes aimed directly at Battlefield fans. I think it was called Ground War or something, basically where there's vehicles and you have to take over points, which is basically Conquest from Battlefield. All in all, amazing experience, and I have to say, I love it. I think I'm finally back onto the multiplayer train after like a decade-ish. The last multiplayer I properly enjoyed was Titanfall in 2014. Like, that was the last multiplayer I properly played. Yeah, Museum, I honestly, I mentioned this before. The Museum map in the Modern Warfare beta, big trash fire, delete it. I don't care whoever made it. Like, please, don't take this to heart. It's an awful map. Terrible map. What were they thinking? Were they high at the time? How high were they? Like, let me know. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. Trash fire. rubbish. Oh my god, what were they thinking? Terrible, terrible map. But other than that, amazing experience. Personally, I can't wait to play the campaign more than anything, but it's the best Call of Duty multiplayer I've played in a decade. Now, that out of the way, the reactions online have been absolutely hilarious. There's groups of people posting their pre-orders online and saying that they've cancelled them. A lot of these people seem to be on PlayStation, by the way, weirdly enough. And they're saying that they can't support the game because it's not, catering to the die-hard fans, which doesn't make any sense. But, like, the Call of Duty fans online love the game. But everyone knows which fans I'm talking about. Like, bashing the game, saying it's awful, which is funny enough because it turns out this is the most popular beta of Call of Duty history. Most downloads, most hours played, most matches played, most kills, most deaths, all that stuff. And it's the biggest Call of Duty to date. It will be. This is going to launch and it's going to be huge. The follow-up to Call of Duty 2019 is going to be massive. The campaign from the last one, by the way, in 2019 is amazing. If anyone has never had the chance to play it, I highly recommend it. Really good. Invasion mode, that was it. But yeah, this is an amazing Call of Duty. And you do have the PlayStation fans, or should I say fanboys, losing their mind because, Microsoft is trying to acquire Activision, right? And the funny thing is, every time I've posted clips, and if people have been following me on Twitter, they'll have seen this as well, a lot of the replies have been things like, oh, now you like Call of Duty because of Microsoft. Or now it's a good Call of Duty game. And it's like, I felt the need to post a picture of my entire collection. Like, I play Call of Duty. I just haven't liked the multiplayer. And this is a damn good multiplayer. And the funny thing is, I've also had a reaction from another group of fans that I didn't really know existed, the Call of Duty hardcore modern audience. So when I play a first-person shooter, I'm checking around corners, I'm being very methodical, basically how I play Battlefield. But I noticed that the modern players, if you watch, like, Dr. Disrespect and that, they're always sliding around the map and just, like, doing this, like, quick aiming and stuff, and it's like, if you don't do that quick aiming, basically if you don't act like a high chipmunk on acid, people think that you're camping, right? And I posted a clip of me aiming around a corner, and people were claiming that I was spawn camping, and I was spawn killing and all that stuff, and, like, they were losing it. So other than the Call of Duty, like, modern crowd, which are absolute bonkers in my opinion, it's a great game. It really is. It's a shame that the beta ended so soon. I think it was only 2 days long in the open beta or something like that. But yeah, easily some of the best multiplayer I've played in a decade. And I can't wait for people to play it. Again, it comes out October 28th, I believe. And if you pre-order it, you get to play the campaign 6 days early. Or it might be 7 days early. Either way, you get to play the campaign early if you pre-order it. But yeah, the reactions online have been hilarious. Like you've obviously seen the cancelled pre-order stuff, right?
Yeah, it's hilarious. I mean, they're gonna keep it on the platform anyway, so it's like the congratulations, you played yourself. It's not gonna change anything. Like, it's, I don't know. It's just the petty clout chasing FUD that people put out there. Just get, little claps on the back from their fanboy friends. It's goofy, and it's just, it makes people look ridiculous. That's all it does. And it just falls further in line with kind of the mentality of the whole ecosystem right now, complaining about competition or saying this isn't fair or this isn't right or how dare you. It's just, it's not surprising to see fans act this way when basically they're being shown to act this way.
Yeah, it's strange because it's like it's a damn good game. It really is, and the reaction online has just been hilarious. Like the thing is, like Call of Duty was always a Xbox centric game, and then when the marketing shifted over, like it's not like people all of a sudden start like assuming it's like a PlayStation. Like look at Final Fantasy, right? Final Fantasy's been on Xbox before, but it's also mainly associated with PlayStation. But it started off as a Nintendo game. But people associate it with PlayStation. Call of Duty is associated with Xbox because the dude bro shooter game kind of thing, and just people are angry. I honestly think that people are legitimately scared that Microsoft's in a position where they actually want to compete, and we're going to be talking about the compete thing. But like, look at Xbox. I don't know, 6 years ago, they had like 5 studios. People didn't know what games were in development, or if any. There was this thought that has Microsoft pulled funding from Xbox? That's what was going around anyway. And you have now where they put in literally almost $100 billion into games. They getting more studios than pretty much anyone other than Embracer Group. But like they're gonna have over 30 studios if the Activision thing goes through. Like Microsoft's wanting to legitimately compete. Like Xbox makes more money than Windows. And yet Windows is a small part of Microsoft's business now. But it's like Xbox is literally a core part of Microsoft now, and that terrifies people because Microsoft they are willing to put their money. What's that saying? Put their money where it hurts or something. But basically, I'm bad with sayings. Basically, Microsoft are willing to spend billions to get the job done. And here's the thing: Microsoft's been in the game for 20 years now when it comes to Xbox, and every day people are like, "Oh, Xbox is going away. Xbox is going away. Microsoft's going to end Xbox." If that was the case, they would have been done years ago because Microsoft cancelled Zune. Nobody was buying it. Microsoft ended Mixer. Nobody was using it. Although Mixer, as a user experience, was better than Twitch. It had better upload features. The streaming quality was better. It was a better product than Twitch, in my opinion. But they killed it off because no one used it. But Xbox, 20 years strong, they're putting billions into the gaming, division still, and people are still concerning over it. But we should be at the point now where we know Microsoft's all in it for gaming. Like hell, $60+ billion into Microsoft. I should say into Activision, like Blizzard and all that stuff. Like Microsoft mean business. And again, we're going to be talking about the whole competition part in a bit, but yeah, the whole Activision thing has really made PlayStation Call of Duty fans scared. Scared. If you've seen anyone on Twitter in the past week say that they've cancelled their pre-orders, know this: that in January, the Activision announcement was made. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 was announced in May. So why the hell did they pre-order it, knowing fair well that Microsoft would be owning the bloody buggers? Exactly, they wouldn't. They did it for clout. They did it for online clout. They posted that picture, and I've seen about 8 people do this, by the way. They posted those pictures for a little bit of online clout because, guess what? Microsoft, Sony, and PlayStation, they don't care about these silly individuals cancelling pre-orders because it's just for clout. You wouldn't have done it anyway, and it's just silly. Honestly, what is it with people doing random crap like this for clout? There was last week, there was the drama with the person leaking all the Assassin's Creed info called The Insider. You have, someone hacking Rockstar for GTA, although that 17-year-old has been caught. So, I mean, don't know what we can say on that, He's probably going to get hired by some big firm, the FBI or something. But yeah. Anyway, we'll move on. Call of Duty's good though. I highly recommend people play it. Although I will say this, I think the price is a bit steep. I don't like the idea of cross-gen games or having the next-gen games cost more. That with me still doesn't sit well, no matter who makes the titles. Anyway, we'll move on. So, recent Jeff Grubb interview start talking about how Microsoft is wanting to invest into Japanese games and studios and partnerships. Well, this has already been well known anyway. Like whenever Phil Spencer's been interviewed and asked, "Is there going to be any more acquisitions?" Like Phil Spencer's literally said he wants to get how should I say it, more Xboxes into Japan and more Japanese games on Xbox. Well, it's kind of obvious that they invest in Kojima, probably one of the largest known Japanese developers, investing in an Xbox game. So now you have Jeff Grubb with this, you have Phil Spencer saying that he's wanting to invest more, and it makes me happy because it makes me think that that's me possibly going to get a Lost Odyssey 2. I don't know, Logan, you wanted to talk about this because it is cool that Microsoft is actually really working hard with Japanese developers again.
Yeah, Lost Odyssey is a masterpiece. I adore that game. It's my favorite JRPG ever. And then Blue Dragon is quite good as well. And it like those were from the 360 era, and then since then it's been nary a peep from over there for exclusive games from Japan. But now they've gone guns blazing and trying to get new content and pouring resources and money over there, selling systems at higher rates than ever before for the Xbox ecosystem. They're committed. Phil keeps saying in interviews, whenever asked about acquisitions, he always mentions Japan and other regions where they don't have a strong presence. And to me, and this interview from Giant Bomb with Grubb and Imran and others, it's just further confirmation that yeah, they're putting their money where their mouth is, and they're trying to fully commit to getting studios over there, or at the very least, deals with companies to bring exclusive content. I mean, even if it just ends up with them getting a smaller independent studio or two, that's huge for the company because it's more of a permanent presence over there. If the pie in the sky dream scenario, they get a Sega or they get a Capcom or they acquire the entire IP catalog from Konami because they're just enjoying remasters and pachinko machines right now. But if they could pull something off like that, or even just get a smaller studio or too, that'd be a jackpot, and I'd be ecstatic.
Yeah, I mean they already have a big Japanese studio at the minute with the Tango Softworks. I should say Tango Gameworks. I always get those two mixed up. Um, but like Microsoft's constantly talking about Japanese support, which is funny because in Japan, like the sales of consoles over each generation is going down because in Japan, mobile gaming is number one over there. Like the Switch is huge because it's obviously portable, but yeah, mobile gaming is huge there. So I think Microsoft, of course, they want to sell consoles over there because I always see Xbox Series S consoles and X consoles. People from Japan posting their newly bought consoles. So they're selling. Hell, the Xbox Series S outsold the PlayStation 5 last month. Or I should say last week. Like, that's kind of crazy if you think about it, considering last generation, they barely cracked 100,000 consoles. Like, so there's something happening over there. I think people do see a genuine, interest in gaming on Xbox over there now, especially with Game Pass. And I do see some comments sometimes. It's like, do we always have to talk about Game Pass? And the truth is, Game Pass is like a core part of Xbox now. You can't not mention it. Like that's a core part of the Xbox ecosystem. Like if you look at PlayStation, they have console sales and game sales, and that's literally two parts of their business. But with Microsoft, they have console sales, streaming, Game Pass, game sales. Because Microsoft still advertise for game sales. They do put at the end of trailers saying, it's also on Game Pass, but they'll say, this game's £40 or whatever. But like Microsoft Xbox is now a multifaceted business where I think in places like Japan, where xCloud is probably going to take off more than any other country, them growing studios there makes sense, especially since games like Final Fantasy aren't on the platform much anymore. We don't know the state of Dragon Quest. The biggest Japanese IP, we don't know if they're going to be on the platform in the country where Microsoft's wanting to grow the most. Meaning Microsoft have to invest into games on Xbox by Japanese developers. So, I mean, hey, it's good for us. We're going to see more Japanese games. And the thing is, if we do see like Xbox 360 era support, exclusives, we're going to see some crazy games. Because again, Lost Odyssey, to this day, probably still one of the best JRPGs ever made. Huge game, amazing soundtrack. And yeah, although I do think it's weird how that game and Blue Dragon aren't in Game Pass. That's always like...
Yeah, that makes zero sense.
Yeah, like, as far as I'm aware, like, Microsoft own the rights to those games, so wouldn't you think they'd be in Game Pass? Because I've seen you bring it up as well. But, yeah, it's strange for them not to be in Game Pass. But yeah, basically, more Japanese support for Xbox will be in the future. Phil Spencer wants to grow studios, which, hey, It's a win-win for everybody. And if it means I get my Lost Odyssey 2, that's all good. And also seeing a lot of people want Blue Dragon 2. I could never get into Blue Dragon. I only played the demo. I have bought the game recently, so I think I'll actually have to give it a go. Very cool art style, though. Anyway, we'll move on. Okay. Speaking of Game Pass, now Sony recently, I should say, Shuhei Yoshida put out a statement recently that how games going into a service should be old and their new titles should be premium titles. Now, I think anyone from any company is willing to make whatever statement they want about services because it's their own company, but ever since he made this statement, people have been going around saying, see, this is why Microsoft shouldn't put games in the service. And it's like, that's not how it works. Like, Microsoft make billions off Game Pass, and that's confirmed money. That's money in the bank every month. But if, like, let's say Microsoft relied on Sony's style of selling games, right? They come out with 1 to 2 games a year that are these $70 titles, and they want them to sell 10 plus million copies. Well, that's money basically 2 or 4 months of the year they make in bank, right? Microsoft make bank every month because games go into Game Pass. That money gets put back into the service. They basically license out more games and stuff, and then they put money into more studios. Microsoft is going to make more money in the end when subscriptions grow. Sony selling 1 to 2 games a year isn't viable if Sony want to grow. Like, in my opinion, like, I don't see Sony growing to the level where Microsoft's wanting to grow with Xbox the way they sell games. Because they don't have their games as a service, not really. And Sony's still growing in some areas. I don't know, what's your thought on this, Logan? Because, like, every time someone mentions games going to a service day one, it kind of riles people up.
Yeah, it goes along with the Jim Dance Moves Ryan kind of mentality of just saying what you think your diehard audience wants to hear and placating to your business strategy. I mean, it's obvious that they want people to shell out $70 day one for their games, and after it stops selling particularly well after a certain period, then they put it in a subscription service. So then they can charge you for that. That's their business strategy. So to them, of course, they don't want to promote the idea of a brand new title and a subscription service, and they want to downplay that idea because that's not their MO. So, for Microsoft, it's like we put all our games in day one, and if you buy it, great, and if you subscribe to Game Pass, cool. Either way, we get your money. You're happy. You get your game. We're all happy. So it's them trying to play up this, like luxurious boutique type gaming ecosystem. Like, oh, our games are superior, and oh, we put a premium price on our product, and it's above the idea of a subscription service day one. Like, it would detract from the value, and it would, you know, image the experience if we didn't put it day one. I mean, it's just a whole bunch of bullcrap that they put out there. And I mean, hey, it's their business strategy and it works for them to this point, but I don't think going forward, especially if they fear competition, that it's going to be viable.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, like, Sony do have day one games in their service. Like Stray, the thing with the cat, that was day one in the service. You have things like Destruction All Stars, which was in PlayStation Plus at the beginning of the year. Or it might have been at the beginning of last year. But they do have day one games. But like whenever someone from Sony makes one of those statements, I don't think they realise that they actually crapping on the games that are in their own service. Because are they saying Stray isn't a premium title? They calling other games basically not worthy to be sold standalone in that sense. Which is kind of weird because they wanting to get other games in the service. And we all know, like, Sony obviously can't put the capital into their service like what Microsoft can with Game Pass because Microsoft's $1 trillion company, but at the same time, Microsoft isn't going to put endless amounts of money into the service. Then again, they just tried to buy Activision for $70 billion, but, like, basically, I think that Sony is just afraid of change, so they're trying to throw everything Microsoft says or does underneath the bus. Like, think about it, like Sony's like game sales and or say business style is how it was 20 years ago. You sell your console and you sell your video game, and that's it. But Microsoft, they literally multifaceted business when it comes to Xbox. Streaming is a main thing now with Xbox. It isn't with PlayStation. You have the streaming from console thing, but I don't know. Like, I think even though it's 2022, we buy books digitally, we buy movies digitally, streaming services have their own shows digitally, but video games still have this like little audience that are just terrified of change. Like, you can still buy physical games. Like, Logan, you even bought Deathloop physically, like even though it's in Game Pass.
Yeah, I personally prefer to have physical copies, like for games that I'm particularly fond of. You know, put them on my shelf and just own it and physically have it, especially if there's a steelbook or collector's edition. But then, down the road, if there's a steep sale on something, I might pick it up digitally as well, so I can have it, permanently on my shelf and have a digital copy. Or if it's only digital, that's cool too. I just certain games I do like to have physically, especially first party games. But the whole idea that people who have Game Pass don't buy games is a bunch of, it's a bunch of junk. It's not accurate.
Yeah, I mean, like, and here's the thing, right? People will bring up, oh, Netflix, having like lower subscription numbers as they did like 6 months ago. You have to look at it like this. Look at the biggest shows on television at the minute. They're in streaming shows, the Lord of the Rings show that costs like $1 billion to make, $50 million to make each episode. You have The Mandalorian, which was costing $25 million an episode. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, $25 million an episode. Those television shows I just mentioned could not exist on traditional television. They just couldn't. Syndication doesn't work that way. The way TV shows are rated and the way adverts are put in for TV shows on channels like Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is the one outlier because like 15 million people watch that or something a week in the US. So they can do that with that one show. But even that is like a smaller show when it comes to like, profit margins and stuff when it comes to things like, Lord of the Rings. Like, Lord of the Rings will never be on TV a show that big. It just can't. Mandalorian, like I said, huge show. So like subscription services are help funding bigger projects, and that's the thing with video games. People think that AAA video games can't launch in a service, but if Microsoft's making, let's say, $1 billion a month, then they technically can make as many AAA RPGs or AAA games as they want. like the proof's in the pudding. Like, Microsoft can literally, like, they wouldn't be buying these studios for billions of dollars if they couldn't make AAA titles. That's the point. Like, they aren't going to get Activision Blizzard just to make indie style projects or AA style games. Like, look at Hellblade. Hellblade 2 is being developed by a AA studio, and they're making a AAA game. And look at it, it's probably arguably one of the best looking games ever made from what we've seen of it. And there's this weird fear from people that quality goes down as soon as you're in a streaming service, when television shows proven that the quality's gone up. Like the next Marvel show is probably going to be a huge budget show as well. Daredevil, that's going to be, I think, an 18 episode series. That's going to be a big budget as well. So, I think the whole worrying about stuff, I think it's just Sony just being a bit, stubborn with their business practices. And when it comes to business practices, we can move on to the next topic. But beforehand, if you're enjoying the show, please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. I hate doing these ads, but I really have to. Super chats live, all that stuff. Always appreciated. Anyway, so Satya Nadella was recently in an interview with Bloomberg, and he basically said that, if Sony wants competition, let's have competition. And the memes went wild, as predicted. I think anyone could have saw that coming. But like, when you have Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, willing to say that over the gaming division, like, they mean business when it comes to Xbox now. And like, the Xbox game division is clearly like one of the core focuses now, because whenever you hear about Microsoft in the news, it's always Xbox. like Xbox is the cool part of Microsoft now. But yeah, Logan, what's your thoughts on this? Because like that's kind of proof that they are all in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, hearing that is should be music to every Xbox fan's ears, and to the Xbox execs and the people who work at the studios as well, even more so. It's like when you have the big dog 100% behind you and complete support in saying like, "Look, we will do what it takes to make this right, and we are 100% behind you, support you, give you all the resources, money, time, everything you need to make the best things you can do." I mean, that's awesome news. I mean, if that was somehow in doubt before, after they bought Bethesda, and then after they bought Activision, if that was somehow still in doubt, it shouldn't be. And it's just awesome to see, and I love his sense of humor and his wit, and him basically telling them kind of be blunt to grow a pair and man up and compete was just it's hilarious, and I love it. And it's the petty drama from this has been quite entertaining. And as long as this drags on, there's got to be some content out there because this thing's gonna take a while.
Yeah, I mean it's a good thing like Satya Nadella and like even Jim Ryan are continuing the conversation because ever since the announcement was made in January, 99% of gaming news is acquisition talk. But like as the whole thing's progressing along, it's fortunate enough that we have executives from these huge corporations say either things like Satya Nadella said or dumb stuff like what Jim Ryan said the other week. With the whole "it isn't fair" that the whole Call of Duty situation. So it's like a tale of two like sides. You have Jim Ryan saying the deal made by Microsoft is inadequate, and the amount of like years the game would be available on PlayStation is adequate, and you have Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, saying, "If you want competition, we'll bring it." like that says everything, and that must be like you're saying. It must be like a weight lifted off all of like Xbox game studios that is because like people, no matter what, no matter who got bought, people are like, "Oh, but Lionhead got shut down." Like every studio Microsoft bought since 2018, they've always brought up Lionhead, and the worry that studios will get shut down. But if you look in that same time, Sony's shut down more studios than Microsoft. But nobody likes to talk about that. Bit weird. Uh, but yeah, it's kind of strange because like literally the biggest CEO in the world back in Xbox, which is kind of impressive. Then you have Phil Spencer. He does the PR thing basically perfectly on about how that they aren't done buying studios. Although I will say that when this whole thing's done, I do think Microsoft they won't go after an American publisher anytime soon.
I agree with that.
Yeah, like maybe like a European studio or publisher, but like I think they're done with the US for a bit. Give it a year or two, because this whole thing's been a headache. Like as someone that covers gaming, 90% of the topics we cover acquisition talk, and it's always the big topic because it's the biggest news story ever. Excuse me. But yeah, I think Xbox fans can breathe a little because if you think about it, 6 years ago, nobody knew the state of Xbox. Even they've put out the documentary on the Xbox YouTube channel. Like after the launch of the Xbox One, Microsoft was uncertain. They were so close to shutting it all down because of that terrible launch. The way Xbox was perceived was bad. And you look at them now. They invest in more into studios than any other company on the planet. They have cloud fully invested. They have AAA games fully invested. They also are experimenting with different projects, things with the Kojima stuff and that. And when it comes to hardware, like they made their promise. Like they after they launched the Xbox One X and basically rebooted themselves, they said they were never going to be behind on power again. And then they came out with the Xbox Series X and showed that they were telling the truth. And then they came out with the Xbox One X, or should I say Series S, and it kind of showed that they wanted to cater to two different markets. So like Microsoft is a completely different like company than they used to be because during the Bill Gates days, like they were ruthless, but they were kind of like penny pinching at the time. Like Microsoft didn't get the budget they needed for everything they needed, and it's just like Microsoft is literally treating Xbox as a core part of its business where it never used to be the case at all. ever. Like during the whole Donny D days and the late Xbox 360 days with the Kinect, like Microsoft wasn't fully behind Xbox at all. Um, and Jim Ryan's like comments a few weeks ago about the whole the 3 year deal after the Activision PlayStation thing's done. It's not enough, and I honestly believe Jim Ryan sees that as Xbox launching the next generation in 2028, 2027. Them launching a new generation of consoles with an exclusive Call of Duty game. That's my personal opinion. Because think about it. Imagine the reaction online in the market if Microsoft literally launched a new generation with an exclusive COD.
I
Like,
mean, it would be like going thermonuclear.
yeah, like other than the reaction online, although I think Twitter would be glorious that day. Um, like I do think like that would really shift the market a bit because think about it: how many people bought Xbox 360s to get maps early 30 days, right? Quite a few million people were buying Xboxes just for Call of Duty. They don't really care about anything else, just COD, 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 maybe the occasional sports and open world DC game. Well, if they were coming out with an exclusive COD game and that game also being in Game Pass, I think that would kind of force like someone in the market to go, I need an Xbox now, and I'm going to get it via Game Pass. And at that point, there'd be over 100 billion, or I should say 100 million subscribers into Game Pass. And yeah, it's just one of my theories. Like Logan, what's your thought on the whole the 3 years post Activision PlayStation deal thing?
To me, I thought that was a fairly generous offer. I mean, it might be on the lower end, but it to me, being able to guarantee that you will have at least 3 more years of a product that you don't own and you don't have control over, that this other company does, but they're letting you go ahead and keep it for a little while. To me, I mean, that's kind of looking a gift horse in the mouth, so to speak. Like, look, they're giving you 3 years. Isn't that better than nothing? But maybe they think they can get a decree from one of these government agencies to where they can get it for longer. Maybe that's why they're throwing such a fit about it. I don't know. But to me, I would take 3 years over no years more for Call of Duty. But like you were saying earlier, like Xbox used to be basically like a garage band side project by like some kid of an exec at Xbox, like treated like that instead of, one of their powerhouse things. Then now it is like the focal, one of the 2 or 3 focal points of Microsoft, period. Like, Phil has a seat at the top table, and him and Satya have all these conversations, and it is clearly one of their biggest things, and they put it in all their shareholder meetings and all this and that. Like, Xbox is hugely important to Microsoft, and that is awesome. And the fact that it is such positive PR for Microsoft as well, because back in the day, like you mentioned, Microsoft used to be just bloodthirsty, ruthless company. And I mean, they might still have some facets that are, but overall, when you hear Microsoft, a lot of people think Xbox now, and that's generally a positive thing. So it's good PR for them, and to put even more money into that, and the fact that they're getting so much money back and everything, it's great to see. And I think you're right. I think launching Call of Duty as an exclusive for next gen, like letting it stay multi-plat for the end of this gen, and then launching, if they want to make it exclusive, waiting till next gen would be the money ticket for me.
Yeah, and here's the thing, Microsoft have mentioned that they want to put Call of Duty on Switch, and I think that makes perfectly good sense. Like, I keep suggesting them to do this because I want them to do this. Port the first Black Ops game to Switch. I know for a fact it'll run because it ran on 360 really well. Like, put that thing on Switch, and the Switch will probably sell another 100 million. But it just makes sense to put Call of Duty there. And I know there's a lot of people that don't like Call of Duty, but Call of Duty is a huge game. Like, that makes people buy things. I mean, hell, Call of Duty Warzone is coming to mobile. Like, that's crazy. Like Call of Duty is pretty much everywhere. But yeah, I think seeing how Microsoft's changed over the years, because if you look at the early 360 days, right, the Xbox 360 was actually like this beloved thing at Microsoft where it was selling well, but you also had Vista, Windows Vista. Nobody liked Windows Vista. The Zune wasn't selling well because the iPod was number one, literally the number one thing in the world. And then you had Xbox, which was this like positive. But the Xbox One launch just like it took all of that away, took all that steam away. And Microsoft's now at a point now where like they've learned all those lessons, all those hardships, and they want to grow even more. Like think about it. Microsoft, they have Game Pass, they have all access, they have different ways for you to get a console, different ways to play games. They let you buy games if you want or stream them, and they're going to continue to grow in those areas. It's like Microsoft's doing all these right moves. And here's the thing, right? I do think Microsoft could improve in some areas. I think their DVR needs to be sorted, right? A lot of people want better DVR options. For instance, when we got our Xbox Series consoles, you were able to record 1080p video for 2 minutes, and now it's 1 minute. Remember? About a year ago, we got an update, and it was just cut in half. Like, nobody knew
That's
why.
horrendous.
Yeah, and nobody knows why. We weren't given any explanation. I think DVR options should be better. I do think Microsoft's what's the saying? I think their control on Blu-ray players is a bit crap. So, for instance, out of all my Xbox Ones, the disc drive went on all of them, right? It got to a point where the disc drive would stop working altogether. Thankfully, my Series X hasn't done that yet. But the Xbox One consoles, Blu-rays, would stop working almost for everyone I know, right? Did that ever happen to you, Logan, where the disc drive would just stop reading discs?
Well, thankfully for me, it never did. But it is something I have heard of, like you said, for others. And then the 360, obviously, I had the Red Ring of Death, so I'm familiar with bad disk drive stuff, but thankfully, not for my One or my Series X.
Yeah, so like DVR disc drives. Hopefully, I think with Xbox Series X it's better. But like even just things like I think people want more genres. So for instance, whenever Microsoft announces a game, it tends to be first person, right? Bear in mind, I have no problem with first person games. I love first person games. Some of my favorite games in the first person perspective. But people do want third person action adventure games. Well, those are on the way. I think they do need to talk about them. But outside of that, like Microsoft seems to be doing a lot of good. They've expanded the studio portfolio. They expanded the first party IP. They're working on new IP. The hardware is in great condition. There's been rumors that Xbox Series S is going to get a disc drive. I don't know about that, to be honest. Excuse me. Like Logan, you've obviously seen that rumor as well, and obviously PlayStation has that rumor. I don't think there's much weight in that. Sorry, what were you saying?
To me, it makes. Sorry, go ahead. I was gonna just say, to me, it makes sense because, like, for example, my mom has a Mac Pro laptop, and then it was a super thin one, and it didn't come with a disk drive. But if she needed to do something for discs or something, she was able to buy a USB plug-in disk drive. So to me, like for families that are maybe a little tight financially, or they don't, they're not worried about the power difference at the moment, they can get a Series S and then down the line get a USB plug-in like disk drive if they make it affordable. That way you can play older BC titles or some of the modern games as well at a later date just as an add-on. To me it makes sense, but I could see it just being maybe something they made as an idea, but I think it would be a good investment if they did do it.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I do think it's possible, but I think it's more possible for PlayStation. Okay, so I've had this theory for a while, and I'm going to sound like a crazy person. I get that, and I know I'm actually doing this live, but I don't really care. So the PlayStation 5, everyone knows that there's two models. There's a digital version, and there's the disc drive model. If you've seen the PlayStation turn apart, like the sides come off. Now, if you have the version with the disc drive, and I've always thought this, I think that the PlayStation 5 was always meant to ship digital only, because the disk drive is a completely different color and different material than the rest of the device. So if anyone gets bored at some point, go online and just look at a picture of a PlayStation 5 turned down. The disk drive almost looks like it was put on afterwards, like as an afterthought. It's like a different color, different material. And that's always been my theory, that the reason why the PlayStation 5 looks like it's pregnant from the side is because it was put on afterwards, because they thought that there would be a backlash to not having a disk drive. So that's me thinking that a year from now, when the PlayStation disk drive comes out, it'll basically be the same thing that attached to it. I don't know, am I crazy, Logan? Because I understand, like, I've not really mentioned this because it does look like it was an afterthought.
To me, that makes a lot of sense that they would have tried to go all digital, and then they were afraid of backlash, so they put a disk drive in it, and then made the a limited amount of the pure digital versions, because that it fits the PlayStation style of doing things, and like for example, like their collector's editions. Like I bought the collector's edition of Horizon Forbidden West, with the big elephant statue, everything. And they gave me a steelbook and I was really excited, but they didn't even give me a disc for it. They just gave me a digital code. I'm like, so you're giving me a steelbook and no actual game to put in it, but you're giving me the digital copy. I know some people don't care about that, but to me it's like if I have the steelbook, I would like the disc for it. So it just seems to be a Sony method.
Yeah, I mean, the whole disc. I know this is a completely different topic, but the whole collector's edition with no disc thing, I'm 99% sure that started because of Dead Space 2. Because I remember that coming out with a really cool collector's edition and a cool steelbook. But I remember it was either Dead Space 2 or 3 where there was just no disc. I think it's a weird business practice. Like, if you want to sell a collector's edition and have it listed as digital only, I understand. But to give you a steelbook and no disc makes no sense, considering it costs about 2 pennies to print a disc. Like, it's a weird business practice. I know pretty much everyone does it. I think THQ Nordic are maybe the only ones that don't do that, where all their collector's editions do have discs, as far as I'm aware. But yeah, weird business practice. Stop doing it. And if anyone from Microsoft's listening, and here's the thing, right? The backwards compatibility thing, we were talking about things we'd like to see more of. The backwards compatibility team's been very quiet for a long time. We don't know what they're doing. Like, we do know they ended the program, as in no more new games. But, like, we haven't had FPS boost or resolution enhancements in, what? Almost a year? It was November last time we got the last batch. Like, I don't know what... I know, Logan, you want more games as well, but, like, do you think it's a bit odd that the BC team have just been dead silent for 11 months?
Yeah, I definitely don't think they're just sitting there twiddling their thumbs. I have a feeling they're pretty active on something. Whether whether it's a big batch of FPS boosts for some more games, or maybe adding achievements to some OG games potentially as a option, or fingers crossed that the AB deal gets done and then we could have a surprise announcement of, yeah, well, we technically said we were done, but we, weren't expecting to acquire Activision Blizzard. So now we got a whole bunch of license approvals that we didn't have before. So here's one more batch of freshly available BC titles. Like, I could see a world where that happens because, when they said that, they hadn't started even talking to Activision Blizzard at all. So, and if you remember, that last batch, the batch before that was supposed to have been the last batch, and that was like a year or two before then. So, whenever they say done or final or we've exhausted, like I always kind of hold on a shred of doubt about that. So, to me, I wouldn't be surprised if we do end up with batch after Activision Blizzard, but that's just a hunch of mine.
I think, like, you as well as me, like, we're still on that BC hype train. We're still in hope for new titles. But here's the thing, right? I always mention 360 because, I'm guessing those titles are easy to get, but like there's titles that aren't backwards compatible that I have no idea why they aren't. So like Star Wars, the Clone Wars game, like it was a digital. I know it was both physical and digital, but there's a Clone Wars game from the Xbox 360. That's the only Xbox 360 game that's not backwards compatible for Star Wars. That's non-connect. Things like that. The Saboteur by EA, not backwards compatible. That always felt weird that that's not BC. Stuff like that. The Transformers games, I know the Transformers licenses all over the place, but out of all licenses, I can't imagine that one being that hard to figure out. But yeah, we just want more BC games, more FPS boosts. I'm being greedy, I know, but yeah. Anyway, Logan, have you got anything else to talk about?
No, I think we've covered the full spectrum. This has been quite a juicy episode, man.
Yeah, we've had about 12 topics, but yeah, everyone in chat's been great today. And again, no porn bots. 2 weeks in a row. That's never happened. Without fail, we get the porn bots from start to finish. But everyone in chat's been awesome today. We'll be back next week at the exact same time. And although Logan, when do the clocks change in the US?
I honestly haven't checked, but it probably will be soon.
Yeah, I'll have to check. But anyway, we'll be back at an appropriate time next week. Probably the same time, depending on whatever's changed. Because I know the US, the time goes back first, and we get it like a week and a half later. But anyway, all that stuff will be sorted. Follow me and Logan on Twitter. All that stuff is in the description down below. Again, everyone in chat's been awesome. We'll be back next week. We are out. Peace.